Hello and welcome to episode 38 for the Cutie Art Crusaders for March 19th, 2013. There's no evidence that I screwed that up the first time.
There is now.
My name is Rainbow Plasma. I'm the organizer and editor of the podcast, and today I'm joined by...
Burn1, and I'm the special guest coordinator and sub-editor of the podcast.
I'm FlutterGuy317, and I'm the art coordinator of the podcast.
I'm Pikadesh, and I do the questions every, 4 or 5 weeks now?
Yeah, something like that.
It makes them more special.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
It matches you, because you're quite special.
Aww.
I choose to take that as an aw moment, so it's
Yeah, you can choose to take that out.
You will. Well, before we start, I would actually like to introduce a guest we have joining us today, so she can join us in for our little intro. This week, we have a special theme, but not all of us are very knowledgeable on our theme, but our guest today is. Today on the show, we have Spirit from the Children of the Night animatic that we interviewed quite a while back on the show with us again today. So thank you so much for joining us, Spirit. We really appreciate it.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me.
Yay.
Yeah, if people remember back, 35 episodes
Yeah,
now?
yeah, it was our
We
third
had,
episode.
Yep.
Yeah, so we had our interview with Spirit here and her husband Lion, and they are doing obviously the Children of the Night animatic, and we're thrilled to have you on again here today because we are all hopeless at color in terms of theory.
By the way,
we get
color
it,
is
kind
our
of,
theme.
You have that natural ability to, like natural talent to kind of see color, but in terms of theory, we're lost. So,
Well, I'll try my best.
anyways, there's.
We know you.
Anyways, there's a couple of things I wanted to bring up before we started the podcast, because this is going to be an educational nightmare. So I wanted to bring up some fun stuff beforehand. So first of all, we've got a very special birthday boy this week.
It's me.
Yeah.
So it's your birthday on Sunday, or last Sunday when this airs, I suppose.
Yep.
How old are you, birthday boy?
I'm turning 24. Well, at the time that this airs, I will be 24, which is really old.
I'm 24 soon, don't worry.
Yeah, but I'm what, 2 months older than you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are old.
So when we didn't totally record this for the first time, I showed Flutter Guy a gift that I made for him for his birthday.
Yeah.
There you go. That was a good summary of what the reaction was. So
Very
once again, we've
adorable.
continued our
amazing.
trend of taking surprises and ruining them, as always. That's what, our third or fourth time now?
It was good because it was a surprise to me too, so I didn't know what to say about it.
Now you know what to say.
It's adorable. It's so adorable.
I'm making
Yes,
you one
it's
as well, but
adorable.
it's not ready yet.
Aw, thank you.
Yeah, I may or may not also be making something that's totally not ready yet because I like doing things at
Now I
last
have to
minute.
make one.
Yay.
Yeah.
I think
So anyways, I thought that I'd bring that up because we always like to mention birthdays, because birthdays are a special time. Speaking of special times, this is airing on March the 19th, and then on March the 20th, I'll be getting on a plane, flying down to Boston, and spending a cool week with birthday boy himself as we visit PAX East, which is a video game convention. But that's significant because A, yay, I get to go see my best friend,
Yay.
and B, this is the first time that anyone from the CAC has met one another in IRL, in real life.
Yeah, I know. Like, we
is
literally
IRL
just
world?
got a question in. I forget who it was from, but they were asking, like, how many times do we meet, like, in real life? And this will be the first. So, yeah.
So not only do I only do the questions every 5 weeks, but my job gets stolen.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Pinky.
Oh, and also, during that week, because I thought it would be fun, I'm going to be recording it and editing it. So sometime within the next 2 to 4 weeks, I will record all the stuff that we do down there, mash it all up into a video of unknown length, and then put it up. I don't know, maybe we'll take like a week off or something for the podcast. We can all take a break, and instead I'll put together like a long video doing that. So look forward to that as well, because that should be fun.
Hooray.
Yay. So,
All right.
our theme.
So enough nonchalant bantering about stuff that doesn't matter.
It's no big deal. You're just coming to see me. Whatever.
Stuff does.
So our theme this week is color, which is why Spirit is joining us. So we wanted to jump kind of right into that. So we have quite a few pieces that kind of touch on certain subjects of color theory. So we're going to go ahead right into our first piece, which is called MLP Hakuna Matata Fluttershy by Husi. And as we always do, we kind of let our guests speak first before we kind of jump in. So
Especially because she's the more knowledgeable
I know.
one.
I have no idea what to say.
I think it would be interesting if we let her go first and kind of get that, first opinion, as we always do with our kind of
We
guests.
always usually do that, but I feel like it's like
puts
if we
people on the
do, then
spot.
she'll make all the awesome points, and it's like, what do I have left to say? Well, I like Fluttershy. She's cute.
Well, do you want to switch it up
Well,
then, and do you want to
One
have us
thing,
go
guys,
first? And
for the video of this, maybe we can bring up a color wheel to show.
Okay.
Yeah, no, if
Thanks.
you want to say, like, bring up a color wheel or something, feel free, and I'm more than happy to throw it on the screen.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, and also before we start, thank you a third time now for coming on the show. Because we like to have these more educational episodes, but sometimes I don't know where I'm going with them, or it's harder to find my points. So I appreciate you coming to help us, educate the
thanks so
audience,
much,
because that's
Bert.
always that's always what I want to try to do on the show. So I appreciate
Whenever
it.
you want.
Bern, you're so lucky that I'm not editing this week, or that would go right into the blooper reel, so that people can see how much you gush over our guests.
I can't help it.
Uh,
Spirit, I'm actually going to throw you under the bus and make you go first, because you mentioned that each piece had a really great example of a certain feature that has to do with some kind of form of color or lighting.
Okay, this is a very nice painting here. And here we have an example of semi-realistic use of color. It's a little bit more saturated than in reality, which is a nice touch for a painting. It's the artistic license. And it's an analogous color palette. The colors applied here, if you will look at the color wheel, are blue, green, just a little bit of purple here and there, but because it's shadow, we don't perceive it as purple anymore. That's color relativity. And we have dark shades of brown and green. It's mostly an analogous palette, as I said, and it's very harmonic, and it's realistic. It gives a sensation of atmosphere, and the painting reads as something solid because of that. Then we have Fluttershy in the center, which is dragging all the attention because she has that unnatural coat, pony color on the coat, and the pink on the mane. And the other characters, the birds, the bird, angel, blend a little bit more. Fluttershy is the focal point of that picture, actually. And you have little butterflies around, which are yellow, which are also drawing attention. I like of this picture that it has a warm light. The light is not just white, it's yellow. And it's projecting cool shadows. It's projecting blue shadows, actually. And that's a correct way of using lighting, because the rule of thumb is that warm light gives cool shadows, and cool light gives warm shadows.
Interesting.
My
Makes sense.
brain just exploded.
Yeah.
Sorry,
That
too
was
technical.
No, that was
Yeah,
great.
no,
No,
it's great.
that's
I'm kind of
fantastic.
listening and following along. I feel like I'm learning.
Yeah.
And it's only been 5 minutes.
No, something really awesome I noticed. You mentioned how the the direction of the lighting, how it's warm, it's yellow, it's coming from that top right, and it's coming down from that angle.
Mhm.
I also noticed that there's the blue sky also in the focal point on the left. It's also kind of projecting on the side of Fluttershy and the top of Angel's head and the side of the bear's fur. But it's a little bit different than some of the shadows created that are using, those violets or cooler colors.
It's actually the use of color in this painting is kind of clever, but it's very well planned because there's a lot of overlapping in this painting, which is something completely different. It has to do with value. You have that very light color sky, and then you have a dark layer, which is the forest, and then the characters are light again. That's overlapping painting, and it serves to focus the attention on the characters, which are very cleverly lighted and placed over that dark part of forest, which is very convenient to have there.
There you go, Bern. So there's some
Yeah,
value.
no, yeah, value. I know, right? I'm geeking out about it already. But also something I noticed is that what helps besides just the value is also the color, and that you mentioned. You notice the blue sky in the background? It's that very light blue, and it does awesome features to, separate that sub background, which is the trees behind the bear and Fluttershy, and then the actual sky, which is you can actually see like bleeding through the trees in color. And it's both color and value, but you can definitely tell that it's sky with that blue peering in through the trees.
Yeah, the
Creating that
saturation is
extra
playing a big
layer of
role in
depth.
this one.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of layering in this piece, I find, because you've got the layers of the sky and then the forest behind the characters, which is the third layer, and then the forest in front. And I'm not sure exactly how the artist does that, but it's done very well because you'd have like almost like 4 definitive layers when you look at the piece.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's about overlapping again. Usually when you plan this kind of painting, I will start with value. I will start with the sky, like defining that gradient, exactly what lightness of the sky. Then with layer number 2, which will be the forest. Then with number 3, which is the main layer where the characters stand. And then you have the layer number 4, which is the foreground. And layer number 4 is the one that has most detail of all. You have that texture in that tree. You can see all the how do you call that green stuff that is always on
The
tree
the
limbs?
vines and
Moss?
stuff.
Moss.
The moss. That's it. Thanks.
Yeah.
You can see the tree moss. You can see part of the bark, and it's overlapping. It's all about overlapping in this case, and it has a lot of layers. Yes.
Yeah, and it does tons of separation of value, and it also does that separation with color, which is awesome. Which is why it's such a great example. I love this artist. Every piece he keeps making keeps getting better and better. This by far has been my favorite piece he's ever made.
Yeah.
I love the perspective, how it just kind of like curls upward. It just bleeds happy for me.
It is happy. It's also the
Ridiculously happy.
the color palette, because of the focal point being pink and yellow, and the main colors, the key colors are that analogous palette, that natural palette from yellow to blue. It reads peaceful and happy. That's the emotional reading of those colors, of that combination.
Yeah, no.
I know you were talking a little bit before the show about colors and emotions. Is there a better piece in the ones that we've selected that will convey that, or do you want to talk a little bit about that right now?
Colors and emotion, I will say, let me check again. About colors and emotion, I'm going to go over on the overall about all them, because that's a very big topic. Because every combination of color gives a different emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we'll touch on that a little bit in every piece then. But something cool that you mentioned before the show is you actually have a color wheel that shows you the emotions in each color and how they're, and what kind of emotions tied with that color on the traditional color wheel. What culture did you say was representing of that specific color wheel you linked to me?
The color wheel that I gave to you was mostly based on the Asian culture. And I remember that because the Tumblr which I got that from was written in Chinese. So I assume that color wheel comes from an Asian art school. Or an Asian art.
But there are similarities for sure.
Oh yeah.
It's not going to be opposite for sure.
There are things that are universal, but it's all about relativity. For example, white in our culture, it's a color for sacred things, for purity. That's why Celestia is white. It's pure. It's solemn, that we call. And in Asian culture, it means death. It's actually the color that you wear in a funeral.
Right.
So there are aspects like that are different, but actually seeing both in Asia and in America, it will be red and white, pretty much, because that reads pretty much action universally.
That's
very cool.
Yeah, really cool.
I just thought it was awesome that the perception of color changes from culture to culture, because when looking at art, especially in art history, one of the most important things you can look at is what is the context of the time, and then the context of the culture and how the culture looks at it and what it meant, because it can drastically change, even just by a color from black to white and what it can mean to someone in some other part of the world. I'd really like to relate that to to pony pieces. Like, look at this piece made by a brony in, the Asian culture area, or look at this piece made by my brony in the European culture and then the American culture, and like compare the colors. I mean, that's getting a little too into it.
Yeah, feel free to spend the 6 hours doing that,
Yeah,
Brent.
But so tying back into this piece by Hussey, that I love this piece so much, and we mentioned the perspective, how it's kind of like warping up, and then the layers, and then it's showing depth with value, and it's showing depth with colors, but also going more artistically. I love his brush style. It's been slowly changing. If you remember his brush style in some of the pieces we featured earlier, on our show, he had like kind of square, blocky, rectangular brush, and it was kind of all going the same direction. And he would use it to paint clouds, trees, and leaves. Well, his brushes have been changing up, and like the style and how he shades things has been changing. And by far, I think this is my favorite in how he just does brush work. It's still very loose, but it's getting closer to realistic, and it's crazy impressionistic. I just learned what that means, so I won't giddy about it. But
Of course you are.
if you're curious about what impressionism is, you can go Google that. We won't go over it in this episode. But is there any points that you guys wanted to bring up about this piece that maybe we didn't touch on before we move to our next?
Well, I just wanted to say that it's really cool that it is kind of an analogous color palette, and that's not something that I would have thought of if you hadn't pointed it out, Spirit. So.
Oh, thanks. But it's pretty much done on purpose, because if you look at elements that could have been changed somehow, for example, the butterflies. The butterflies are yellow and blue. Those are the extremes of that color wheel, of that color sample that I mentioned. He could have done those butterflies differently. He could have used monarch butterflies, but he didn't. They are blue and yellow. They are on that color palette. By instinct, he didn't want to make the butterflies the center of attention by making them orange, which will be a lot warmer. So that's an example of control.
You can see a little bit. It's super dull. Like he made it super subtle. There's like 3 or 4 orange butterflies, but they seem to like glow. And if you look on the right side, right behind the bear's arm, there's like 3 tiny spots of like kind of pink that almost look similar to the tail of the bird below it.
Yeah, that's called an accent of color. Usually
cool.
in paintings you have a key color. It's like lightning. A key color, in this case it will be green. Then you have a secondary color that will be blue. The tertiary will be yellow, if you want. And then you have accents of orange and red. Because Fluttershy main is pink, but pink is actually a form of red, if you think about it. It just has a little bit of white on it to make it that pinkish color.
That's awesome that the butterflies are kind of like an accent of Fluttershy and kind of like the accent of the path in which they're walking.
Yeah. In that, this kind of thing, the accents and all that, is used mostly in web design, a lot, and in fashion design. But it's also a part of theory of color that is used in paintings.
There was something I learned about color. It was that if you're using very similar colors and other colors like the butterflies to accent colors that are similar or analogous, it creates a sense of harmony in your piece, doesn't it?
Yes. It's a great sensation of belonging together, because those colors seem to belong to an atmosphere. And that atmosphere holds everything. In this case, it's the green and blue, the main atmosphere. You can feel that cold air. You can feel the temperature of the air in this piece. You can tell that it's a little bit humid, maybe. It's 11 in the morning that they are singing through that forest. That is not a summer day, probably it's a spring day.
Yeah.
And you can tell all that because of the color scheme.
It's true.
Yeah, and you can kind of tell it almost looks like a morning because of the position of the sun and the, I don't know, just to me.
No, that's correct.
Yeah.
Still very low.
Morning is warmer, you know, and evening is a little. We have sunrise and the sunset are the two, you know, warmest, brightest times in terms of I guess saturation in a piece, if you were to relate it to something like that, and but morning is much more yellow, whereas I feel like evening is much more orange. Just in terms of that, I'm not sure if that's completely wrong or not.
It definitely depends on the area, but I mean, in like the areas that I grew up in, that's very true.
Yeah, I think it's for most.
A point that I wanted to make on this piece, how I mentioned harmonious colors, is you can also have something that's very disharmonious. It's not a piece we're going to feature on the show per se, but it's just a piece I wanted to mention. If you use analogous colors like this, you can make something seem very whole, seem very harmonistic. But if you use tons of crazy oversaturated colors, you start creeping into the expressionist form of looking at art and expressing art and emotion. And you can get a piece closer to this, which is by, I don't know how to say that, Ipocho, but it's crazy colors everywhere and in every accent, super saturated, super bright, and it creates a source of chaos in all of the crazy colors. But it's all subjective and like how you like it or how you want your piece to look. But in this episode, we're not going to be talking a lot about crazy uses of colors. We're going to be talking more about more.
The book.
What's the word I'm looking for? Yeah,
Going by the book.
Yeah.
by the art book uses of colors. More in I can't remember the word.
Harmonious colors.
No,
or...
school like fancy learning. Types
Yeah, I'm gonna go with by the book. I think that's a better.
Yeah, I can't think of
School
the right
like fancy.
term.
Don't you use your fancy
Academy-like uses of color.
Academy.
That's a good word.
Academy-
Anyway,
it's an academy
so-
record.
moving right along. Did you want to introduce our next piece, Letter Guy?
Sure.
Before I dig myself into a further hole.
All right, I'll help you out of that one. So our next piece is called Hey Oh by Blitz Pony, who we've had on the show before.
It wouldn't be a burned episode without Blitz Pony.
Right?
Fantastic artist.
When we talked about color, that was the first artist I went to.
Well, when we talk about
We
anything,
know.
that's the first artist you go to, Bert, but that's besides the point.
Shut up.
So anyhow, you were saying you guys had
point to make
yeah,
about
you
this?
guys have like a point with this
Yeah.
piece that you want to touch on.
Something that when I was bringing up art pieces, I was talking about them with Spirit or before we started recording the show, and I really like this piece because of the use of pinks in it, because it's not like a pure white. It has tons of pinks. It has greens. It has reds. It has violets, and then like the green outlines and green in the hair. But it's a majority white of a piece, and I hadn't thought too much of it, of like the majority of the color in it. I just thought it had a creative use of color, and I was looking for very muted colors, very soft and subtle colors, because I had very saturated, very, very, very colorful pieces, and this one is it's lower on the saturation and color. And a point Spirit brought up is that it's a majority white composition or color scheme, and that's very hard to pull off and very difficult. And Vic, did you want to talk a little bit more about that, the point you made earlier, Spirit?
Sure. Well, I need to make a quotation here. Maybe you guys are familiar with a painting by an artist that is called Johannes Vermeer. It's the girl with a pearl earring.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever?
Oh yeah. Cosmic Unicorn actually did a pony imitation of that piece.
Well, yes. There's a movie about that painter, and there's an interesting
Mhm.
point brought up in that movie that it's directly related to this. The painter was talking to his servant in the movie, and he asked, which colors are the clouds, or which colors do you think the clouds are? She thought a little bit about that, because girls seem to have a sensibility towards color. I will say white, but that is wrong. Clouds are blue and gray and yellow and purple. They are full of color, and that's what's the correct answer. Usually when you go to a first grade class or a class full of children and you ask, which color is the sea? Everybody goes blue. Or which color are the clouds? Everybody goes white. But when we are painting, we know you learn that there's more to it than just that. And this is an example of it. You have white, and you have white characters, and you have a white background. What do? You are doomed. You don't have color variety. So there's the artist here used a lot of subtlety, like you using watercolor. He used purple and cold colors to color that snow. That's very smart. Very slight touches of red to make a little bit of contrast, a little bit warmer. And that's a clever use of color. This kind of painting is very hard to pull off. The line is helping a lot on this one. But imagine that you don't have a line to help you. Then you have a problem. You have to rely on tones for shading this white, on slight purples and on slight yellow for the light. and try to make that white, that pure white, a little bit more dark, and try to bring highlights how you want. This kind of painting is super difficult. If you do it without line, you have a problem.
Hmm.
And it's very well pulled off, in my opinion.
This piece.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a huge fan of this artist. So
Yeah, I can imagine trying.
just
Yeah, Vern, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, seriously, cut him off.
All right, go ahead. I'm just gonna rant.
Yeah.
Renard.
I could imagine that trying to pull this piece off without outlines would require like really fine tuning the value in the piece, because the ponies and the background. I mean, the background has this infusion of the different like purples and the pinks and the reds and stuff, but it'd be so tough to try and distinguish them, I think, for an artist.
Well, white is not only a color, it's a problem when it's on the character and the background, because white is the most reflective color of them all. It will reflect light the most, so it's very hard to manipulate.
Yeah.
Basically, you have a rarity on a dark environment, and it's going to pop out a lot. And if it's a secondary character, you have a problem. You have to trick. You have to cheat that picture, that painting. Sorry.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I love when you get into like intricacies of color or or just any kind of pictures or painting, kind of like cheating color, cheating the rules, cheating the focus. When you kind of talk about those little things you have to do to cheat something to make it become the focus, or to make it become more subtle, less subtle, whatever.
Yeah, in that case, if I will imagine that I will have, I don't know, rarity and twilight sparkle in the Nightmare Moon Castle, and I want to make twilight the center of interest. First of all, I have to bring twilight into the light, into a focus of light. I have to cheat that. And I will have to keep rarity in the shadow and totally tint her with purple. Because that's a way of tinting white, using purple. And trying to darken her as much as I can to hide her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you have that white color that is dragging value out of your painting.
I have to be very careful with that for sure.
As much as I'd love to rant about this piece more and more,
Yeah.
Let's move on.
We're gonna run a little short on time.
Yep. So we're
So
going
go ahead, Flutter Guy.
to move on to our next piece, which is called Derpy Wisp by Aaron JVL, another fantastic artist. And before I let you guys go at it, I just want to kind of point out that this, to me, has a similar thing going for it as our first piece that we mentioned, because it has the yellows and the oranges, and it's going to blue. I could be completely wrong though. I don't know.
I think you're completely wrong.
I think I'm probably
and
completely wrong.
I'm gonna try to be like the amateurist counterpoint here, because we're about to be told what the right answer is in a minute. But I'm gonna try to
But don't worry.
provide another amateur point of view, because what we were talking about in the first piece was more analogous colors,
Yeah.
which are colors that are close to each other on the color wheel. Whereas this piece is very evident that these are not analogous. Purple, or not purple. What am I saying? Blue and orange, not analogous. They're how could I possibly forget the word?
Complementary.
Complementary.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you. They're complementary,
Yes.
so it's quite the opposite. In fact, he does a cool thing where he kind of blends between them. But I would say, yeah, it's quite the opposite from our first piece. Even though he does a lot of the things similarly, like the layering that you kind of get from that is very similar to the first piece. But I think that in terms of colors, it's complementary, not analogous.
No, you're definitely correct. I'm going to put my finger on my nose to remember the point you mentioned about how they blend together, because I wanted to ask Spirit about that.
All right,
but
I'll remember the
think
blend.
What Flutter Guy, the feeling you were getting, is in our first piece, it had that yellow down the whole center of the piece, then it had that blue sky.
Yes.
There is the similarity in this where it has kind of that yellowy orange with the blue accent. But it gets where blue and orange are direct complements. They're right across from each other on the color wheel. To where blue and yellow are they're both primaries. So you get into the kind of the what's the word, tertiary? Is that correct? Not tertiary. Triad colors.
Yeah.
I believe it's the right term.
What's a
which
triad color?
I will show you a triad color on this example on the screen, where you have a primary or a complement, and then you have the two primaries or complements on the other side of that color wheel. Not directly across, but below it and kind of
This will
over.
be a
It usually creates a triangle.
fantastic moment to bring that color wheel into the
Yeah.
to the viewer.
We showed Spirit a website in which you can it's basically everything under the sun in terms of colors, and she'd never seen it before, so now she wants to bring it up all the time, which
Yes,
is good.
yes,
because
I
it's a
want.
great resource. Bern, put the link up on the screen to that color thing.
All right.
People can follow along and play around
Yeah,
with it.
We'll do it.
it's
So
very useful.
if you want to look up some awesome color stuff or play around with color, and actually learn what analogous colors are, tertiary colors and triad colors, and so on and so forth, please, by all means, we encourage you to go play with this color wheel. It is the traditional color wheel. It is red, blue, and yellow. It is not the digital color wheel. So it's a good color wheel, and if you go into a classroom, people will know what you're talking about. They won't be like, "Oh, digital artist." So don't get confused with Photoshop. The Photoshop color wheel and color picker is completely different than this one.
Color pickle.
Okay.
Bern, put a picture of a color pickle on the screen.
Before we all end up
Make it a rainbow.
rambling more about color pickles and rainbows
Yeah.
screen demonstration, let's please move on a little bit. Spirit, do you notice anything awesome, or what's the thing you notice first about this piece?
The color
Well-
pickle.
It's warm versus cold color. It's something that some awesome painters like Ryan Wood will use a lot. Check that, guys. It's awesome. You have to check it. And mostly, the theory says that cool colors will push backwards, and warm colors will push towards the viewer.
I said that in an episode once.
So that helps to create depth into that painting. We know that Derpy is very close to us, because those clouds, those yellow clouds are so much closer to us than the blue ones, which are tinted by the sky atmosphere, while the yellow ones are illuminated by a warm light. It's again an example of overlapping. We have blue, then we have yellow, and then we have Derpy, which is, her mane is yellow and blends a little bit, but her body is gray, and because the atmosphere of the background, she's a little bit blue, so it's overlapping once again, and very well pulled out. The light that is illuminating Derpy is the blue one. We know because the shadow of Derpy is warm.
Huh.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a reddish kind of shadow, and it's a very nice way of framing the character. And however, in the middle of the painting, we encounter, well, as I said before, warm light produces cold shadow, and vice versa. And when you are lighting a painting, you will notice that when you are illuminating with yellow and then casting a blue or purple shadow, you are going to find a problem. It's because in the intersection of light and shadow, when you use color, you have to color most of the time complementary, clashing together. So what happens then? It becomes gray or brown. They annihilate each other. And that's a very common problem. You see happening in the middle ground of this painting. There's like dust there, and orangey, brown, it's grayish. It's a little bit dirty of a color.
Yeah, you can really see it on the left side, but right around that spiral on the bottom left.
Yeah, that's a very, very common problem, and it's unavoidable. Some painters have, like Jeremy Vickery, get around it very well, and like Sam Nilsson, because they are masters of that. But it's actually a very complex phenomenon. It will take me hours just to get around how to avoid that problem and how to use it in your advantage.
Yeah, how to use it in your advantage. That's the big one. I tried to mention it in a previous episode about how you can mix two complements to to kind of create a gray neutral point. But it's more used when I don't even know. Like I don't even have an answer for that. But no, that's an awesome point. That's why I wanted to have my finger on my nose, because when you mentioned that before the show, that was awesome. I had no idea. Is there actually a way to cheat that per se?
Yes, because it's a very, very complex way. Because on the one hand, you have the color of the light. On the other hand, you have the color of the shadow. The color of the light being yellow in this case, the color of the shadow being purple, because of that law that I explained. And then you have the color of the cloud, which is white. And it's the color of the cloud and intensity of the light all together, blended in a very smart way that can get you around that problem. That's how Sam Nilsson does it.
Huh.
Yeah, it's actually very, very, very hard to pull up. You need at least 3 lights in that painting. You need a key light, a backlight, and a bounced light. And then one of those lights has to be cold, and the shadows have to be cool. It's an actual mess. It's
That
very,
sounds
very hard.
way
That's
too
very
complicated.
advanced digital
Wow.
painting.
That's very
The
cool.
way to get around it, do you have 3-4 hours maybe?
We'll make a whole nother episode of how to get around that.
Yeah. we'll do like a mini series.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, I
Well,
Sorry for that.
I
It's
think-
it's actually a very complex problem.
yeah, no, it's all fine.
I usually go nuts when I encounter something like this.
I think we're all big fans of this artist, though, Aaron JVL.
Yes.
He's definitely an awesome artist. He has some awesome pieces. I'd
Yeah,
love to have
based
him on
on-
the show. He said he may not be the right guy to talk about this, but I mean, he can make amazing pieces like this. So I'm really curious to know if he's conscious of these decisions that we've kind of been talking about and the things that we're finding in his piece. I'm really curious. So I'd love him on the show at some point.
Yeah, we
but-
talked to him so long ago. Like one of our first weeks, we sent him an email and we emailed back and forth for a little bit. But just since then, I don't know. I would love to have Aaron JVL because I remember back to like the first 10 episodes, it was like the Aaron JVL show because
Yep.
we had so many pieces of him right around that time.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Anyway.
hopefully we can have him on the show sometime.
Yep.
But for now, we're gonna have to move on.
yeah, unfortunately, because this piece is amazing. But on to our next piece, which is called Hoof Standing on Bridges in the City.
Great name.
Great
That's
title.
such a great title.
By,
That's such a
uh,
good title.
By
We're a
Machinimator.
stickler about titles here.
Yes.
And that's a good one.
Fantastic title.
It just
And-
it just states it.
On to the art.
Do you guys notice anything interesting?
Oh, I thought Flutter Guy was going to introduce it more.
Oh, no.
So I didn't want to interrupt him. I like this one because, as I've stated before, I like pieces that use, like, where most of the piece is one color, or at least very similar hues. Not quite, I mean, you can use the word analogous, of course, but it's not quite the same as our first piece, which used analogous. This is almost like completely analogous in that it uses very, very similar hues for, like, almost every single thing. We saw that with Rose Luck. We saw that with Colgate. We talked about it in our OC episode. And so I don't know. There's just something about it where it's just like very unique. You don't see it too often. So I really like seeing it.
Yeah, no, that's actually one of the main points of why we wanted to bring up this piece. Each piece, as I mentioned, it kind of has its own point that we wanted to talk about. The first being that warm light, and then kind of the steps of value and color, and then our second piece being, that white color scheme, and then our third, the Aaron JVL, being the warm to cool and the color complement, and then this piece, why we wanted to bring it up, or why Spirit actually brought up to me why it's a great example. I had actually never seen this piece and never seen this artist, and then Spirit actually showed look at this piece, and this is awesome. I'd never seen this artist or this piece, and it's actually really amazing. And one of the reason why we wanted to bring it up is because it has, see if I can remember why, a constant color atmosphere. Is that right?
Yeah, we're talking about the one with Twilight in the Bridge.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, it sounds. It has a constant atmosphere and it has complementary colors.
So it's okay. So it has the complement in the yellow and the violet, and then it has a lot of analogous and showing kind of like details in like the reds and everything.
Yeah,
But-
that's precisely the violet palette. Oh, all the violet palette. It's analogous, and then you have a complementary light. You have white and orange for lightning.
Okay, that totally just clicked
Yeah.
now. That's cool.
Yeah,
so
it's
you
like
can
the
have
solid the solid objects in the piece, the actual physical items in the piece, Twilight, the bridge, the buildings, they're of a certain thing, and then the light is the complement. It's not two different
so you have
things
like
in a
that
piece.
analogous, violet analogous realm and of subject and everything in your world, and then you have a complementary light source.
Huh.
That's kind of an interesting concept.
Yep, and it's also that very dangerous situation in which you have complementary colors. The light and the lighted object are complementary, so you are going to have a lot of gray and a lot of brown. Because of the style of the painting, he got around that. Because it's not a completely super rendered full light style of painting.
Right.
It's a little bit more brush stroke a little bit more flat, and it works.
Mm-hmm.
Burn's got a term for that. It's loose brushstroke.
Loose
Brushstroke.
loose brushstrokes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what they told us to say in art appreciation. I used to call it messy. I like that. I like that better. Messy medium
Messy.
versus a very clean medium, or hidden brushstrokes versus very sloppy. I don't know. But tight and loose was what they told us to use in art appreciation. But yeah, no, I definitely like the loose brushwork in this and the very kind of messy, unclean edges of the brushwork. I find I really like it. And just like you mentioned, one of the observations I made was this piece seems very flat, from kind of the foreground to the midground and the bridge. And I was kind of looking at it as a critique, but I kind of like it. It kind of creates a dynamic to the piece where it's more about the colors and how they interact rather than creating the illusion of depth, because people seem to overemphasize and stress you have to have this implication of realistic depth and realistic, and like it has to look like real life, and there has to be this foreground, midground, background. And I think it's a bunch of crap. I really like when a piece becomes more about the color and kind of the expression of it. It's very key for expressionist art, where it's not about how it's supposed to look in the real life. It's like, how does it make you feel, and how do the colors interact? So I find I like that a lot more in this piece. And it has that bit of depth created in the complementary light with behind twilight with the and like the light shining on things, and it gives you that sense of realism. But I find I like the flatness in the piece, because I find I don't see that a lot, especially in pony art, which is what I look at the most, you know.
Well, seeing as Burn and Spirit have said everything about the colours, I just want to point out I love what he's done. The artist has done with the grass down the bottom. It looks very much like canvas. If you look at the grass down the bottom.
Oh yeah.
And
There's
I quite
like a
like what he's
cross-
done with that.
Cross-hatching kind of technique there a little
Yeah.
bit.
So it becomes more about the brushwork, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's much more apparent for sure. I wanted to bring up something because we just want to touch on this quickly, because I know we have to still move at a fair pace, but there's something that you brought up before the show, which I think would do, maybe not for an in-depth, but maybe just a definition for those people out there who don't know. But do you want to talk a little bit about the subspace, whatever you were doing? I don't even know. Subspace lighting or...
Yeah, Spirit.
Light going through other objects. Let's keep that point to our last example.
For the last
Yeah.
example,
Because
yes.
it'll make a great point for our last example. And let me
Is
let
there a
my
better
dog
one?
in the
Alright.
door because he's scratching.
Well, okay. Well then, audience, take a mental note. Something, subspace, something, last painting. Okay?
Yeah,
Well,
subsurface scattering for last painting.
Yeah. Something, subspace.
Subsurface.
Speaking of last painting.
Subsurface scattering.
Yeah.
Subsurface scatter.
Yeah.
Subsurface.
I'm too stuck on my math course.
Okay,
It's
so
actually math.
Yeah.
Light is math.
Oh, don't talk to me about math, please.
No, I won't. I'm dyslexic.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Okay.
Oh, did we mention how awesome the reflection and river is in the piece? By the way.
I was going to mention that actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
The reflection is awesome.
Do it so we can move on.
Oh, it's amazing. I also like how they worked in the blend of the lighting into the reflection with like these analogous colors and the complementary colors. They do kind of work around that whole gray brown messy blend kind of thing really nicely, and it fits in with the style too.
Yeah, and I really love that the pink river, like going up to the center of the piece. Remember how you mentioned how it's like, what color is the ocean? And most people say blue. It's like, nah, it has greens and other sorts of colors, and clouds aren't just white. They have different things mixed into them, different colors, where it's like water's not blue, it's bright pink. I mean, you can clearly see it here.
Yeah, you can see.
Everyone draw
Water
pink
is the
water.
color. Water is the color that reflects the light. So
Yeah.
if the light is green, it's going to be murky,
'Cause
disgusting, silver
We
water.
all know that the reason why the ocean's blue is because the sky is blue.
And the sky is
vice
blue
versa.
because of scattering, which
Yes.
yes. Okay, so
All right.
on that point, we're going to move on to our next piece, and our final piece, which is just called Dash by Enkard. And wow, this piece is amazing. It's very stunning. Do you guys want to touch on it first?
I'm a fan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Again, this was another piece that I had never seen before, and an artist I had never seen before, and Spirit actually brought up to me before we started the show, and it again is an amazing example. And it's also very similar to a piece that we couldn't or probably can't feature because of copyright issues. But Spirit might mention that a little later.
Yeah.
But our last point of why Spirit thought this was a great idea to bring up this piece is that we've shown everything with our pieces before about things of color, and this one is awesome in showing depth and steps in planes, like foreground, background, using color.
Yep.
Is that correct?
That's a great example. And also because of temperature of color.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So do you want to go a little bit into that?
Yeah, go ahead. Feel free.
Well, temperature of color, it's actually it's considered an advanced term, but it's very simple to understand. If you look at a candle or a fire, you know that the center of that fire, it's almost white, yellowy, sometimes white if it's very, very incandescent. Then you have yellow as the secondary tone, the warmest, from the warmest to the coolest I'm going. Then you have orange, then you have red. And that's the basis of a flame, and that's the Kelvin color mode of the Kelvin temperature for color. The hottest spots, it's always the white one, and then you go a little bit more saturated when you go to the coolest spot of a plane. In this case of the sunset, the hottest spot is the sunlight, which is almost white. It's not pure white. That's something to kind of avoid in paintings, pure white and 100% black. And then you have a little bit more saturated yellow, but not too much. It's pretty pale. Then you have a more saturated orange, and then you have red tones. So that's the temperature model of color. Temperature model of color, and it's something to take in count in paintings. If you want to provide a warm atmosphere and a warm light, you can use that in your advantage. If you are using, if you are painting a sunset, and you have a point of the picture to be the warmest point, maybe you can use a little brighter, less saturated yellow to make that point. Those kind of subtleties can play in your advantage a lot. And in this painting, it has the same challenge that the therapy one has, which is complementary tones colliding together. He has orange and then he has blue in the sky, and if you try to make a gradient in Photoshop, orange and blue, perfect complementaries, it's going to give you kind of a gray in the middle. It's always a problem to get around. He got around that because he very cleverly placed clouds in that middle zone that drag a lot of light to that and hide that murky zone and create atmosphere. It's very clever. That's what
Very cool.
Yeah. It's a clever use. And then you have Rainbow Dash in the foreground, which is very dark. Usually this kind of effect is achieved when you shoot a photo camera. In reality, there will be a little bit of bounced light, so an alternative approach to this will be painting Rainbow Dash on a very cold color, bluish purple, and lightening here in the head zone a little bit into the front, in the front zone, the front hooks, the head, the ears, and the wings a little bit, because the wings are something very special. They are very thin and they are made of feathers. So there you have an opportunity, the wings and the ears of a pony, to make surface scattering.
Some surface scattering.
Yeah, it sounds super fancy, but it's very simple. When you have, for example, an ear or your fingers placed against a flashlight, your ear or your fingers will look very red. Not that you don't put them against a light bulb. Use a flashlight for the pony's sake. Please.
Don't touch fire.
Don't touch fire or incandescent bulbs, please.
Do it.
Oh yeah,
You're
that's
bad
a great idea.
influence.
So if you do that, you will notice that they become red. That's because of the light bouncing inside of your skin. You can see that in a candle when you light it. There's a zone where the candle lights itself in the center and glows. That's subsurface scattering. If you place an orange piece or a mandarin piece against the light, you will see that subsurface scattering. If you see Wreck-It Ralph, every gumdrop in that movie has subsurface scattering. It's a 3D term. It means that
it has to do with a lot with density of what the light is going through. So that's why
Precisely.
things like feathers and ears are very they're not very dense objects, I suppose. You could probably explain it better than a term than dense. But
Yeah, and light passes through them, which is the important point.
Yeah.
yeah.
It gets through the surface of the object into the interior of the object, and it scatters. That's why it's called subsurface scattering.
Fancy.
I think it has to do
Super
with like
fancy.
refraction, internal refraction and stuff with physics and stuff. For any physics,
I know some of those words.
Science.
Science.
Una, please explain.
Well, you have light, and light can be reflected or refracted or pass directly through an object. And when you have like an object that light encounters, it will refract, which means it bends, which is why often when you see water, like things inside water will look like they're in a different place than they actually are because it's bending the light. And sometimes if you hit at the correct angle, you get total internal reflection, which means that the light can't really exit the object. And then it kind of, at some point will exit the object, and that's what creates this scattering kind of thing effect. I think.
Yeah. Science with an explanation.
Yay.
All right.
Something, subspace, science, something.
Fancy language.
Yeah.
Complicated term.
It's crazy how like art and science, you think of them as two totally different things, but they really influence each other.
They do.
Absolutely.
Well, usually digital painters always take a course on 3D software. That helps a lot because when you are like toying with 3D, you have all those lights, the type of light, the omni light, the direct light. Oh, this is super technical. If you toggle with 3D software, you get pretty familiar with it pretty soon, and you have the opportunity to mess with that around and understand. Suddenly, everything makes sense. All the lighting, all the shadow casting makes sense, and plus you can tint the lights. You have those gold shadows appearing.
I wanted to bring up just one more thing with this piece. If you look at Rainbow Dash's wing, her left wing, that has some lighting on it, which I think is kind of cool because it shows a little bit of a reflection off of her right wing, I think. Because it's like the warm color. I don't know if it's a reflection or if it's just the way that her wing is angled.
It will be bounced light from one wing to another. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like he didn't just leave Rainbow Dash that pure blue. He mixed some orange in there to show some detail, show some like limb detail and ears and in the feathers. And then he has that bright orange highlight on the outside of the wing and even on the front of her body and the front of her hair. But her hair will blends into the sunset there.
Yeah.
But something I wanted to mention as well is that he didn't leave, like as Spirit mentioned as well, that he didn't leave Rainbow Dash that pure black because you want to avoid pure white and pure black in a lot of your work, especially digitally. And it's Rainbow Dash is actually a very, very dark desaturated blue. I brought it up in Photoshop. It's pretty cool. But anyway.
All right.
So.
Well, as much as we would love to continue talking, we are reaching an hour here, so we should start wrapping up. Is there anything else that you think, in terms of color theory, Spirit, that people should really know about, or is there something that you particularly wanted to bring up today?
Well, I recommend Color Theory from Goethe, which is a very complete book. Unfortunately, it's incredibly boring. So if you really, really want to learn about color theory, that's your go-to book. If you want a little bit of more entertaining thing, I recommend Color and Light with Jeremy Vickery from the Gnomon Workshop. It's a DVD available through Amazon, and it's awesome. It's absolutely awesome and super entertaining, and it covers all the topics that we talked about here today. Oh, by the way, he doesn't pay me anything for advertising his DVD.
I'll put the titles for those on the screen for those interested.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Well, I suppose that is Bernard's making funny noises, so that means he has nothing else to talk about, and that means that we're going to be wrapping up today. So first of all, I'd just like to obviously say thank you very much, Spirit, for coming back on. It was semi-short notice from what I heard, so it was very nice of you to come on. I know we always have a pleasure with you on, and you definitely helped us out here today because
Extremely.
we learned so much.
It's a subject that we always wanted to talk to people about and inform people about, but we had no real like way to do it. We didn't have the tools to it.
I didn't know how.
Yeah.
Oh, whenever
Yeah,
you want.
you've
And
I
a
learned
gig of
things
color.
today.
absolutely. So thank you again.
I mean, we could probably talk for hours and days about this stuff. So,
It's nice to kind of shorten it down
Yeah.
into a concise kind of thing, like we did with our OC episode.
Yep.
You know.
Value.
Yeah, and with our
Value.
all the burned episodes. It's nice to shorten them down into a concise.
one word, value.
It's too bad that we cannot use copyrighted material or anything in the show, because if you show some shots from Disney, you see the emotional aspect of color right away. You don't have to see it on paintings, which are a lot more complex.
Yeah.
But if you take,
Ooh.
it's too bad they don't use it that much in Pony.
Hmm.
There are
Yeah.
very few shots that actually use it. When Lauren Faust was on board, they used it for Nightmare Moon. They used a little bit of it for Chrysalis, but after that, not so much.
Yeah.
Oh, sad day.
Well, luckily we have an amazing bunch of artists in the fandom that can kind of take over and fill in the gaps where we need them to.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Last awesome leaving point, since now we're done with all our pony pieces. If you're still interested in all this color stuff, think back to like your favorite Disney movies, your favorite Disney villains, like some of the evil queens. Like think about what colors they are and what colors come to mind. Especially in Western culture, we connect a lot of colors and a lot of emotions to Disney characters and to Disney villains. You actually mentioned it in our interview, and like how things in Cinderella, how a lot of the, or was it Cinderella? I think.
Yeah, it's Cinderella.
How a lot of the colors are attached to happiness, and then for like the villains, a lot of the colors are attached to envy and evil.
Usually, happiness is blue, yellow, and purple. Those are the colors of royalty, of wealthness. So they are very happy.
And pink was one of those too, right?
Yeah, well, okay, that's a different kind of happiness.
Oh.
You are talking about heavenly happiness, which are
Oh,
the
okay.
colors of the Celestia's mane.
Oh, that's right. That was the point. Celestia is the color.
Celestia's mane, it's the heaven
Thank you,
colors,
Lauren
that
Faust.
blend of happiness. And the colors for evil, the super turbo mix, is green and purple.
What is that Disney villain? I forget her name. The queen. Starts like an M.
You mean all of them?
Maleficent?
Maleficent. Yeah, Maleficent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Purple and green, all along.
Yeah, those are her colors.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, anyway,
All
I
right.
think we have some plugs to do.
On that note, we're going to have to wrap up.
Yep.
So we should quickly, again, thank you for coming on. We will definitely be having you back on when you finish Children of the Night. We had
Thanks.
a fantastic time with you last time you were on,
Yes.
and this is only furthering the proof that we should have you on more often.
Yeah. Much
So
more often.
when you and Lion get that all finished up, we'd love to have you back on and
Yeah, and
talk about
maybe
that.
even beforehand.
Hope it wasn't too technical.
Oh no, we
No,
love
no,
that.
no. That's exactly what we brought you on for, and you put it in a very easy to understand way.
I know we learned a lot, and I hope our audience learned a lot too.
I learned things.
When Byrne learns things,
I'm all giddy right now.
it's a good day. So, Pinky Dash, do you want to
Do the plugs?
start up with the plugs?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll do it quickly because we are out of time. We have a DeviantArt account, which is cutieartcrusaders.deviantart.com. Go there to check out any previous art from the show and previous episodes. They're all their own individual folders. Just check through our gallery. We have an email address, which is cutieartcrusaders@gmail.com. Send down any questions you have for me, even though we only do them every 4 or 5 weeks now. Any art you want us to have a look at, anything you make for us, fan art, all that sort of stuff. We still get a fair amount, don't we? I mean, it's still
it's
crazy.
crazy.
But
Thank
yep,
you guys.
just remember to send in what you're sending in. Just remember to put it in the subject line. So art, fan art, questions, whatever you want. Just put it in the subject line so that Gmail sorts it out for us.
Yeah, spell it out.
yeah.
OC, whatever.
Yeah. Fun again?
Yep. We have a Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Cutie Art Crusaders, and there you can go and like us, and we'll provide you some information on the day that we're airing. And we also have a Twitter account, which is @Cutie Art Crusade, and you can find up-to-the-minute information on the stream and how things are going if we have technical issues or whatnot. So,
Mhm.
yep.
And a lot
Finally.
of people. Oh,
Okay, sorry,
One
go
more
ahead,
thing. One more plug.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have been contacting us asking for critiques or things on their art or their OC. A lot of us don't have time for that. But if you are interested in getting some kind of critique or want us to look at your junk, you can post that on our DeviantArt page, the cutieartcrusaders.deviantart.com, or you can actually contact me directly at burndawan.deviantart, and I'd be more than happy to help you. I've been having a lot of fun critiquing people's stuff. It's actually been helping me learn. So it's actually been fun. And then make sure to comment and like the YouTube video. It helps us
Yeah.
again.
Burns got the time, so bug him.
Yeah.
There's one thing I do want to note. Our show, as we had last week and as we had this week, and as we will be having from now on, has moved exactly an hour earlier. So that means that is 8 p.m. Eastern, 1 a.m. UTC.
0 a.m. UTC.
Is it 0 now?
Because
Or
we're
is it
in
1?
Eastern Daylight Time now.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's 0 UTC. That's correct, right?
Yes.
So what I'm going to ask everyone here to do, because this is probably my number one pet peeve with the internet, is that nobody ever knows what their time zone is. And I understand it's difficult, but here's the deal that we're going to make. Audience, you, me, connection right now. So what we're going to do
It's rainbow plasma time.
is you're going to agree to learn what your time zone is relative to UTC, or at the very least, something like EST, which is used way too much. So, and then whenever we say something, we'll try to use UTC as kind of a common marker. So our show airs at 8 p.m. Eastern, 0 UTC, or midnight UTC.
What if I
UTC
what if I
stands
just
for?
refuse?
Well, then it's your fault, because then you refuse to learn the time of our show, so
And
you
you're a
can't
jerk.
complain. No, people can not come, but you can't complain about they don't know the time if they're not willing to learn it.
Don't be a jerk, Scott.
I can't watch anyway because of time. So I'm at work normally.
I know.
So yes, 0 UTC, 8 p.m. Eastern time. That'll be it from now on, and that'll give us a little bit more freedom to make sure that we're not going over and running into the show that's recently come after us, Brony Clubhouse. So
And it also
hopefully
European
that works
viewers.
for
it
everyone.
also European viewers hopefully will be able to come out and watch us, which would be awesome.
Yeah, now that it's like 2 hours earlier now, or 1?
Yeah, 2 hours for them. I think. I don't know.
I swear, if 0 UTC is not the right time, then I'm going to kill you.
Daylight savings time messes everything up, man. It's terrible.
I
know.
Anyways, 0 UTC. Check us out then. We're just an hour earlier, but I don't even know anymore with daylight savings time. So hopefully people will come 1 week and they'll be like, that's the time. And then it'll be consistent from then on. And if anything else happens, we will.
It would be really bad for the people who's going to be tuning in for like a 6 o'clock stream. Like, oh no, they're ending. It's like, we're sorry. Catch it on YouTube.
6 o'clock your time burned. You're messing with the time zones again.
Oh crap.
On that note, before we mess with your guys' minds, we'll
We're going to head out. So thank you guys for watching, whether or not you're on a live stream or YouTube. We love you all the same. Whether or not you're a stuttering mess like myself, we thank you guys for watching. So my name is Rainbow Plasma.
Now I'm Bruno 1.
I'm Flutterguy317.
And I'm Ganesh.
And this is where Spirit says her name, but we kind of had audio issues. Yeah.
Yay! And we'll see you guys.
First one we didn't have to prompt.
We'll see you guys next
See you guys
week.
later.
Bye.
Bye.
See you later. Where it's harder to find my points, so I appreciate you coming to help us, educate the
thanks so
audience,
much,
because that's
Bert.
always that's always what I want to try to do on the show. So I appreciate
Whenever
it.
you want.
Burned, you're so lucky that I'm not editing this week, or that would go right into the blooper reel so that people can see how much you gush over our guests.
I can't help it.
Uh,
Spirit, I'm actually gonna force you, throw you under the bus, and make you go first because you mentioned that each piece had a really great example of a certain feature that has to do with some kind of form of color or lighting.
Okay, this is a very nice painting here. And here we have an example of semi-realistic use of color. It's a little bit more saturated than in reality, which is a nice touch for a painting. It's the artistic license. And it's an analogous color palette. The colors applied here, if you will look at the color wheel, are blue, green, just a little bit of purple here and there, but because it's shadow, we don't perceive it as purple anymore. That's color relativity. And we have dark shades of brown and green. It's mostly an analogous palette, as I said. And it's very harmonic. And it's realistic. It gives a sensation of atmosphere, and the painting reads as something solid because of that. Then we have Fluttershy in the center, which is dragging all the attention because she has that unnatural coat, pony color on the coat.
Hello and welcome to episode 38 for the Cutie Art Crusaders for March 19th, 2013. There's no evidence that I screwed that up the first time.
There is now.
My name is Rainbow Plasma. I'm the organizer and editor of the podcast, and today I'm joined by...
Burn1, and I'm the special guest coordinator and sub-editor podcast.
I'm Flutterguy317, and I'm the art coordinator of the podcast.
I'm Pikadesh, and I do the questions every, 4 or 5 weeks now?
Yeah, something like that.
It makes them more special.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
It matches you, because you're quite special.
Aw.
I choose to take that as an awe moment, so it's
Yeah, you can choose to take that out.
You will. Well, before we start, I would actually like to introduce a guest we have joining us today, so she can join us in for our little intro. This week, we have a special theme, but not all of us are very knowledgeable on our theme, but our guest today is. Today on the show, we have Spirit from the Children of the Night animatic that we interviewed quite a while
As always. That's what, our third or fourth time now?
It was good because it was a surprise to me, too, so I didn't know what to say about it.
Now you know what to say?
It's adorable. It's so adorable.
I'm making
Yes,
you one as
it's
well, but it's
adorable.
not ready yet.
Aw, thank you.
Yeah, I may or may not also be making something. That's totally not ready yet because I like doing things at
Now I
last
have to
minute.
make one. Yeah.
I think
So anyways, I thought that I'd bring that up because we always like to mention birthdays, because birthdays are a special time. Speaking of special times, this is airing on March the 19th, and then on March the 20th, I'll be getting on a plane, flying down to Boston, and spending a cool week with Birthday Boy himself as we visit PAX East, which is a video game convention. But that's significant because A, yay, I get to go see my best friend,
Yay.
and B, this is the first time that anyone from the CAC has met one another in IRL, in real life.
Yeah, I know. Like, we
is
literally
IRL
just
world?
got a question in. I forget who it was from, but they were asking, like, how many times do we meet, like, in real life? And this will be the first. So, yeah.
So not only do I only do the questions every 5 weeks, but my job gets stolen.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Pikadesh.
Oh, and also, during that week, because I thought it would be fun, I'm going to be recording it and editing it. So sometime within the next 2 to 4 weeks, I will record all the stuff that we do down there, mash it all up into a video of unknown length, and then put it up. I don't know, maybe we'll take like a week off or something for the podcast. We can all take a break.
While back on the show with us again today. So thank you so much for joining us, Spirit. We really appreciate it.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me.
Yay.
Yeah, if people remember back, oh geez, what is it, 35 episodes
Yeah,
now?
Yeah, it was
We
our
had,
third episode.
Yep.
Yeah, so we had our interview with Spirit here and her husband Lion, and they were doing obviously the Children of the Night animatic, and we're thrilled to have you on again here today because we're all hopeless at color in terms of theory.
By the way,
we get
color
it
is
kind
our
of,
theme.
You have that natural ability to, like natural talent to kind of see color, but in terms of theory, we're lost. So,
Well, I'll try my best.
anyways, there's
We know you'll do
anyways, there's a couple of things I wanted to bring up before we started the podcast, because this is going to be an educational nightmare. So I wanted to bring up some fun stuff beforehand. So first of all, we've got a very special birthday boy this week.
It's me.
great. Yeah.
So it's your birthday on Sunday, or last Sunday when this airs, I suppose.
Yep.
How old are you, birthday boy?
I'm turning 24. Well, at the time that this airs, I will be 24, which is really old.
I'm 24 soon. Don't worry.
Yeah, but I'm what, 2 months older than you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are old.
So when we didn't totally record this for the first time, I showed Flutterguy a gift that I made for him for his birthday.
Yeah.
There you go. That was a good summary of what the reaction was. So
Friggin'
once again, we've
adorable.
continued our
amazing.
trend of taking surprises and ruining them, and instead I'll put together like a long video doing that. So look forward to that as well, because that should be fun.
Hooray.
Yay. So,
All right.
our theme.
So enough nonchalant bantering about stuff that doesn't matter.
It's no big deal. You're just coming to see me. Whatever.
Stuff does. matter.
So our theme this week is color, which is why Spirit is joining us. So we wanted to jump kind of right into that. So we have quite a few pieces that kind of touch on certain subjects of color theory. So we're gonna go ahead right into our first piece, which is called MLP Hakuna Matata Fluttershy by Husi. And as we always do, we kind of let our guests speak first before we kind of jump in. So
Especially because she's the more
I
knowledgeable
know.
one.
I have no idea what to say.
I think it would be interesting if we let her go first and kind of get that, first opinion, as we
Yeah.
always do with our kind
We
of guests.
always usually do that, but I feel like it's like
puts
if we
people on the
do, then
spot.
she'll make all the awesome points. And it's like, what do I have left to say? Well, I like Fluttershy. She's cute.
Well, do you want to switch it up
Well,
then, and do you want to
One
have us
thing,
go
guys,
first? And
for the video of this, maybe we
Yeah.
can bring up a color wheel to show.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
So
if
thanks.
you want to say like bring up a color wheel or something, feel free, and I'm more than happy to throw it on the screen.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, and also before we start, thank you a third time now for coming on the show.
But
Because we like to have these more educational episodes, but sometimes I don't know where I'm going with them.